Good afternoon and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be facilitator for today's call. Today we have one of our frequent presenters, and that's Dr. Jamie Huysman. He's going to be talking to us today about how to keep our cool in life and over the holidays. Really important topic this time of year. Before Jamie gets started, let me tell you just a little bit about him. Dr. Jamie Huysman built his innovative healthcare career on the premise that necessity is the mother of invention. His belief that the resilience of the human spirit and collaboration are key to our country's health future is the core of his philosophy. He is a fierce advocate of patient-centered healthcare and a workforce in touch with their own wellness. He has almost 30 years of medical and behavioral health experience in the nonprofit and for-profit corporate leadership roles. Today, he works in provider relations and governmental affairs for WellMed Medical Management, a San Antonio, Texas-based physician-owned primary clinic organization. Dr. Jamie, welcome today.
Thank you, Glenda. Thank you to obviously the crew that's always showing up, the choir, as I mentioned, because if you're showing up, then you guys are 10 miles ahead of most people. You're actually becoming self-aware. You care enough about yourself before the Christmas holiday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate season, to find out how do we keep our cool through the holidays and beyond. And so just as a qualifier before we get into this is kind of your best hits, sort of, if you will, riff. I look back and realize that so many of what things that we've done together is about keeping our cool and our systems and befriending our literally our autonomic system, our neurological system, that I went back and said, look, at the end of the year, I'm putting them all together and we're going to understand more the gift of emotional regulation in light of a dysregulated caregiving world. And all of you don't need to be reminded, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is that when I had this epiphany in 2010, we wrote the book literally, I think in 2006 to 2010. We didn't have a name or a title for Take Your Oxygen First. And it was when the stewardess came out and she looked at us, and I was on that plane from LA to Miami. And she said, look, you've got to do it first or it ain't going to work. And then I called the FAA and they said to me exactly that. You got 19 seconds of useful consciousness. God forbid if we hit the ground. Many people do survive, but only if they're able to take that oxygen first on the plane. And I said, oh my gosh, I was working with professional caregivers. That was the mantra. So that's your mantra today. That's your mantra during the Christmas holidays, the vacation holidays, if you will. That's your mantra to stay cool no matter what in 2023. At the end of the day, what are we talking about in terms of a way to keep cool? Well, a lot of times it's like reading a book, right? And then we read the book and it's done. Goes in our head, one ear out the other. Look, the new psychology is that we can actually take ownership of being cool in our heads. We can take ownership of the triggers and things that hit us that allow us to become dysregulated. We can do this by transforming our own mind. And if not us, who's going to do this, right? So it's foundational during the holidays, as I say, DAZE, to say, we need a level set. What is the foundation here of keeping our cool, not just through the holidays, but obviously in 2023? Well, let's also agree before we even go on that there are no cleavers, that we're not a cleaver. Listen, I'm old enough to have watched that. I happen to have loved the show. I was a combination between all of them, Wally, the Beaver, and Eddie Haskell. But as a therapist over the last 30 years, anybody who come in and said they had no issues, no problems, that their family was just like the Cleavers. Look, it didn't take me 3 or 4 sessions to find out that even if it was unintended, and I mean unintended, that people did the best they could, there are no Cleavers. We all come out of childhood with challenges. We call them almost narcissistic injuries. But the level set, again, you've heard me do this before. I don't think we can do it enough. Somebody said, well, doctor, you told us about a neurosystem before. I said, well, telling you is one thing. Experiencing it in our health and our hearts is another. We're never going to learn unless we feel things in our heart. If we keep letting it go in our mind, it's usually one ear and out the other. So let me remind us that keeping cool during the holidays, during 2023, is basically the same thing that we did in childhood or wish we did in childhood. In childhood, we looked for a secure attachment, okay? During the first 5 years of our life, our personality gets developed. We're kind of actually at the mercy, if you will, of our parents. In some ways, as a therapist, it's a little bit like being a prisoner of war, that you're begging and hoping that your parents are fair, consistent, available, attached, healthy. But in many cases, they're just doing what their parents did as well. In those first 5 years, a secure attachment is all we ever want, to build our self-esteem, to have empathy, to have confidence. I'll use myself, as I often do in our presentations. I didn't have any of those things. I came out of a very difficult, pretty argumentative, high conflict family, and I didn't feel a secure attachment. Many of you may have felt the same way, but at a young age, I realized I was on my own. I had to get beyond my own. So what does a child actually want? Two things. They want the healthy attachment, but they want, really more than anything, authenticity. Now, authenticity is not anything you think it is. It is the most aspirational end game, if there's such a critter, we could possibly want. We've been kind of bamboozled over the years that we need enlightenment. We need a spiritual awakening. We need all these things. Guess what? What we're really striving for, the end game, is what the child always wanted. It's what we want now. It's what we need now. Authenticity. You've heard me do this in the holidays, a Halloween, if you will, talking about the masks that we wear and how much energy it takes off of us. But allow the child to be authentic, to move, to feel the way they move, and appreciate them for what they are. As caregivers, as family caregivers, this is the greatest single kind of direction we could have to, if you will, get in our energy back, stay cool, and make it through the holidays, is literally to be authentic. Now, if the child only wanted two things, authenticity and healthy attachment, guess what trumps the other? Authenticity should trump everything. Often we kind of attach to people and put attachment ahead of authenticity. That means we kind of people please. We do what the person in front of us does. Authenticity is the child, if you will, crying at 2 years old when it wanted a cookie. And instead of being put in timeout or put in the corner, the child's held, the child's listened to. The child may be kind of cajoled and said, maybe you can have the cookie after dinner, but not before dinner. But we go through the child's authentic response, which is crying. Well, guess what? I know that many of us are my age, right? Family caregivers. That's all we want. We want to be authentic. We want to aspire to this concept of authenticity as family caregivers. We don't want to wear a mask for our loved ones. We don't want to wear a mask for the world. It is an energy drink. Authenticity is not something we have or don't have. It's a practice every day, a conscious choice of how we want to live. Okay, being authentic, it's a collection of choices, and that today I'm going to have you kind of think about the holidays and about obviously staying cool, but it's really about how being authentic. It's about the choice to show up and be real in our lives, no matter what the person in front of us is going through or who the person is in front of us. The choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. So you all know that when I put something up here, I want you to follow through if this is of interest to you. And Dr. Brene Brown is fabulous, just fabulous. So as a family caregiver, we got to ask ourselves, do we just want to survive or do we want to thrive? Well, a lot of us can just survive. Family caregivers just survive. But when we survive, it's kind of like dealing with the biological responses in our minds of the fight, flight, freeze response. But when we thrive, okay, we can reflect, we can really manage our emotions. We can actually have curiosity and imagination. We can actually do things like abstract thinking, okay? We don't have to get stuck in the biological response of fight, flight, freeze. So to understand how to stay cool during holidays and understand how to stay cool in 2023, we have to become self-aware. And that's why I said to you initially, you are the choir. You show up a lot. It's fabulous. I don't think you can show up enough. It's like me going to therapy every week. Yeah, I'm a therapist. I have 30 years of clinical training, but it's almost as if you come out of childhood with a particular mindset, right? 5 to 7 years is your personality. It takes us the rest of our lifetime to get out of it. So I want you to become aware of how to stay cool. And the way to stay cool first is to become aware of our biological default. If we're feeling dysregulated with a loved one, or we're feeling dysregulated with ourselves, we're anxious, we're depressed, we're isolating, whatever, we may be going to our fight, flight, freeze response. Okay, fighting, what is that? Well, somebody says something that we don't like, we attack them. Flight, somebody says something we don't like, we don't attack it, we run, we repress, we depress the anger and emotions in us. Okay, that's what depression, the word, came from. Or we freeze like a possum, and we just say, oh my gosh, I hope our predator doesn't kill us. And we just want to stay, just immobilized, so they think we're dead already. The fourth F is the way I emerged from my childhood. Okay, unfortunately, I knew that I had to keep people happy. I had to dance around. I had to be the hero child. So what I did was fawn, beg the tiger not to eat us. As family caregivers, we tend to go to the fourth one, fawn. We tend to want people to like us instead of becoming authentic. When we want people to like us, we become more dysregulated. It requires more energy. And guess what? We usually lose our cool. Yep, our cool quite quick. So to become really understanding of how to keep our cool and how to become self-aware of the triggers, we have to become self-aware of the role childhood trauma plays in us and how it triggers us in family caregiving. Okay, a lot of you, again, have heard me say this before. This is the basis of my psychological, if you will, philosophy, is childhood trauma. You may hear it over and over and over again from Dr. Jamie, but what I'd like you to start doing is feeling it, not hearing it, feeling it. You're going to see. I always say the longest trip we take in our lives is from our head to our heart. So this is why I said this is a compilation of our greatest hits. Our heart is where we need to feel this. Our heart is where we need to understand that childhood trauma is any event or series of events that are extremely emotionally painful or distressing in some way. Holy cow, isn't that a ton of things that happen in our childhood? I don't know, man. Only you know, but when I get a patient inside my room, there's a lot of things they go to. The person that captures it best, who's on YouTube, and I think that really you should grab his book. One of the book is called, the new book he just came out with is called The Myth of Normal. The Myth of Normal. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate. And again, I'm very privileged to be on the advisory board of the Polyvagal Institute with him. He's a primary care doctor in his own recovery, okay, in his own recovery, who really has this understanding of authenticity of a child and what the attachment is and how we can have the healthiest, safest life possible. I say psychologically safe. And he said, basically, to understand childhood trauma, you got to understand that the greatest damage done by neglect, trauma, or emotional loss is not the immediate pain they inflict, but the long-term distortions they induce in us. What does that mean? Well, trauma is not something that happens, to us. It happens within us, is what he's trying to say. Our response to childhood trauma, that fight, flight, fear, and fawn response, is the way we interact with the moment. So we're feeling dysregulated in the holidays, and holidays is like putting more dysregulation on top of what is already dysregulation, right? I mean, let's say you invite your biological family. I don't know any more dysregulating group than that. That's why I always say less is more during the holidays. If you really don't want to be triggered as much, you want to keep your cool, keep things light, don't go overboard, don't be super person. Now, for many of you kind of say, well, what's he talking about? Go to the CDC website, cdc.gov. And again, you're going to find all about complex trauma. Complex trauma, again, is unavoidable sometimes. It's our childhood growth and development. Children should be seen and not heard. It's being placed in timeouts. It's what we call narcissistic injury. Sometimes it's like being in a full-on psychological war like the one I came out with. But no matter what, it's these 10 factors in our lives. Psychological abuse. And again, when I say abuse, they're innocent abuses too. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect. Look, so far I've got 2 out of 4. Physical, loss of a parent, I've got 3 out of 4. Mother treated violence, substance abuse, I got 4 out of 4. Mental illness, I got 5 out of 5. Anyway, you get the point. But if you have 4 in the ACE studies, chances are you have a shorter lifespan, you've gone into rehab, or you're in prison. Adverse childhood experiences just are there as a child. When we get into family caregiving, adverse childhood experience get triggered. So I'm going to keep you in this mindset of a holiday mindset and just ask you to understand that you need to become self-aware and understand the role of attachment, healthy attachment, safety, and authenticity in you getting cool, calm, and collected. And to understand that really from a personal side, you got to know the difference between complex PTSD and really just PTSD. So I work with cops, firemen, emergency medical technicians, also with the military. You know, when something goes off, like an IED, tragically, that's PTSD. When it triggers these issues that are unresolved from childhood, it becomes CPTSD. So we're all walking around with some level of CPTSD, right? Now the holidays hit. We may be going through anxiety and tension and depression already. It's on the end of COVID. We may work, and that work is a dysregulator. Our loved one who may have acute, chronic, or terminal illness, who may be decompensating, may be getting worse. Whatever the reasons are, we're just peeling the onions here. These are all triggers in the obviously holiday season that hits us. So as a family caregiver, I want you to start thinking only in terms of your mind-body connection. Don't just think the body, don't just think the mind. Medicine has really left us, unfortunately, in a difficult place. They have not connected the mind and body until recently. One of the reasons was the mind was always in the psychology world. The body was always in the medical world. Well, guess what? The psychology drives stress, drives tension, drives anxiety, drives cortisol in our bodies. It drives our adrenal glands and adrenaline. It actually makes for autoimmune issues. It makes our diabetes go more up and down. Okay, the mind and the body are connected. And when the mind and the body disconnect, we become fragmented versions of ourselves. So I'm going to ask you to stay cool during the holidays. You got to understand your mind and your body are connected. That's what the adverse childhood experience studies are basically saying. If you went through that stuff, your body is going to be affected. So what does a family caregiver want? Well, anything that most children want. The need to feel safe, okay? Not just be safe, it's to feel safe. It's an autonomic nervous system response. Hear me out on that. Yes, I want you to go to therapy. Yes, I'd love for you to have a safe place that understands family caregivers, that understands you. It's a wonderful thing to have a coach that keeps you accountable. But understand that our way to deal with the triggers and to stay cool during Christmas, during Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, or to next year, is found through our autonomic nervous system. So in the early 1800s, when psychology started, Freud was later, Jung was later. Today, we don't see it like that. Today, it's all about our brain response, and our brain is connected to our autonomic nervous system. Okay? Your nervous system as a family caregiver, as anybody, as a human being, okay, is the greatest and largest, most incredibly interconnected system in our body. It touches our lungs, it touches our heart, it goes through us, it hits our brain. It's our fight, flight, freeze default. It's everything, but we've never really honored it. We never befriend it. We never understand it well enough. So today, as a family caregiver, I know you've heard me say this, but I'm very much neuro-driven. But as a this really doesn't take a psychologist or a social worker. This just takes a human being, not a human doing, to understand we can calm ourselves down by calming our autonomic system down and by being more cool and developing resilience. As I mentioned to you often, the mantra is we never see things as they are. We see them as we are. What does that mean? Well, we're feeling dysregulated, we're cloudy. Maybe our loved one is getting sicker, or maybe we ourselves are getting sicker and taking care of our loved one. Remember, the reason why I got into family caregiving work way back in 2002 with Lisa Gibbons Foundation was we started seeing a disproportionate trend of family caregivers passing away before their loved ones. And it just dawned on me. I had worked in mental health and on television for many years, that the mental health of caregivers was decompensating while they were taking care of loved ones. That's how Take Your Oxygen first came out. So I understand that if we're not doing well ourselves, we don't ever see things as they are, then we're going to come in highly dysregulated. We see them as we are. So if we're depressed or anxious, overwhelmed, that's going to cloud our reality. So our loved one is going to want to be in our presence, and they're feeling fear, right? They're going through acute, chronic, or terminal illness. They just want us to be on 2 feet. And for us to get on 2 feet, we have to befriend our nervous system. We also have to understand that keeping our cool has to be a gray area of fluid process. It cannot be a black and white process. It cannot be turned on like a light switch. Well, like a light switch means, and that's an unfortunate clinical condition, which I call personality disorder. They're only in 7-8% of our population. So most people are in the growth mindset world, and most family caregivers, if they can actually deal with triggers and keep their cool during the holidays, will be in that flexible gray area place where you see challenges help you grow, right? Not challenges are going to knock you down, right? Not a black and white thinking. Feedback is important. Not taking things personal is important. But people who can't take feedback, who just rage out or get angry, or take it personal, that's more the fixed mindset. So I'm going to ask you as family caregivers to start opening up to only the growth mindset, okay? Understand that all your challenges are going to help you grow, and understand that neuroplasticity, which is actually retraining our brain, is the key to keeping our cool. Neuroplasticity. This is all in our own hands. And like Gabor says, and I've said it often, and I want you to hear this almost as a mantra. If we're dysregulated and not cool during the holidays, it's because we don't understand that we're 100% responsible for who we are. Our task is to free ourselves sufficiently so we can respond in the present moment, not from past programming. So when we're dysregulated, we jump back to fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response. That's your past programming. Freedom is in the moment, realizing that we're responsible and emotionally regulating that dysfunction, that dysregulator, okay? So Marsha Linehan, who kind of took over in the 80s from our old psychotherapeutic way, was the founder of what we call DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Now, this is pretty much for family caregivers. I don't need you to go too deep in the weeds with me. But literally what she says, emotional regulation, mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, and distress tolerance. All I'm asking, if you want to keep your cool, is all of those things can be found, guess where? In the ability to retrain our brain, in our own neural pathways. Literally, whether we're going to be regulated, dysregulated, on eggshells, not feeling great during the holidays, is in our kind of hands. We literally, through ways to calm the brain and retrain the brain, can retrain and change our neural pathways. Yes, it takes a longer time. And yes, it's 3 steps forward and 2 backwards. Yes, it's like water over a rock that continues to get polished. But we have to be very forgiving and compassionate with ourselves, that we do not have to rest in a state of dysregulation. We don't, if we're anxious, overwhelmed, we don't have to blame others for that. We're powerless over others. You've heard me say often, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? We're powerless over that. But what we're not powerless over is our own neural pathways. You don't need a license. You don't need a certification. You don't need to be sitting on a mountain in Tibet for an hour a day to be able to retrain your brain. Retraining our brain is a commitment of 3, again, forward, 2 backwards, meaning you're going to slip. You're going to not emotionally regulate. Sometimes you're going to react instead of be proactive. But chances are, if you do this more than often, you'll be better off. So if it's thinking in your mind what that DBT was, first of all, you know, I'm a huge believer. I write for Psychology Today. The search engine in Psychology Today is the best search engine for therapists I have ever seen. If you go on their front page and put your zip code in, or if you're in Texas, Florida, anywhere in the country, please, out will pop all these therapists, their resume, their picture. Do yourself a great favor, though. If they have DBT training, dialectical behavioral training, and this interests you, this concept of fight, flight, freeze, not going back necessarily and saying what happened when you're 4 or 5 years old to your therapist constantly, but being able to retrain your brain, then choose a DBT therapist for you as a primary caregiver. They will help you focus and learn to live in the moment. They will help you reduce intensity of emotional pain. They do that through obviously regulating, help you just be like a transformational coach. They'll help you diffuse stressful or painful situations, which is distress tolerance. That's your cues and triggers in Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Distress tolerance. They'll help you with those triggers. And at the end of the day, they're going to help you set boundaries up, which will really allow you to feel safe and allows the other person to feel safe. It really is interpersonal effectiveness. Interpersonal effectiveness is not growing up the way Dr. Jamie grew up, being, people pleasing and helping the person in front of you. It's literally laying out boundaries. And those who hang with you with those boundaries are real true friends. So that's what dialectical behavioral therapy, if you pull up your therapist and if that's the way you want to go, and I do highly, highly recommend you getting with a trauma therapist, all these 4 things as a caregiver, you can actually start working on. You can. It works. DBT is a frontal lobe work. And I think it's great. It's a great thing because years ago, before we had this sort of psychological push, going to therapy was bloodletting. You could be there for years and years. This is a way you can be your own therapist as a caregiver. Okay. You can start creating a flexible mind through emotional regulation. If you came out of your childhood and now being triggered by the loved one you take care of, which I did, and I obviously educate and empower and energize as many caregivers as I can, I came out of it as a hero child, any codependent, not feeling enough, not lovable, right? I don't do self-care because I wasn't worth self-care. I don't really enjoy the moment. I'm just trying to get through the moment. And you start blaming yourself. Does any of this sound familiar? Yeah, caregiving can really trigger this. All of these things, if we allow it to trigger us, if we take things personally. For us, if any of these things are popping up, we need to really do the emotional regulation piece. At WellMed, when I work with our leaders, I truly believe leadership is being vulnerable, being able to embrace your story, but knowing you can get through it. Okay. It's okay if I talk about my story. I didn't feel that way, and I'm still a work in progress. But as a primary caregiver to your loved one, I know you may be taking care of a parent, maybe taking care of a spouse, but you got to become your own parent. If you're going to get cool during the holidays and cool in 2023, you have to reparent yourself, especially during the family caregiver experience. That's the beauty. When I work with family caregivers, they say, how do I do this? I don't have time. I go, no. Your loved one is always going to be the trigger for you, that if you're feeling dysregulated, to become your own parent. Many of you have heard my definition of the activities of parenting. It's not telling your loved one, I love you, love you, love you. Heck, it's a great word. And love is used often, but I've heard love used in the courts by people who are charged with felony. Parenting is about being fair, consistent, and available. So I'm going to ask you, do you think for some reason or another, you have any aversion to you adopting yourself and becoming fair, consistent, and available? That's all we're asking, is how do we reparent ourselves? So the holidays is a great time to give yourself a gift of taking your oxygen first, a gift of reparenting, and a gift of putting yourself first, being kind to yourself. Okay. This is the way, literally, that we remain cool. Look, if we're going to be a people pleaser and do things that the environment wants and shape shift ourselves, there is no way we're going to feel cool. We're going to feel overwhelmed. We're going to feel we have a lack of energy. We're going to feel like a producer or director in a film, a story. It's so much nicer to let that go and just be our own story, okay? And just be honest with the world around us. And the most important thing in caregiving, as you've often heard me say, is not to be around toxic people. Yes, maybe, and I've done presentations on the high conflict caregiving. Our loved one may not be also behaviorally healthy as we'd like them to be, and it could be a toxic situation too. But we have to understand then how to modify contact, and that's what good therapists do. So the only ways to deal with getting cool is the same old ways that we've talked about from day one. It's to befriend our neurosystem. It's to emotionally regulate our autonomic system, that we feel our body, not know our body, feel it. How many times, literally, do we ever go instinctually on our gut? We let people talk us out of our gut, right? I think we need to live our lives by our gut, right? And the only way we can do that is if A, we're emotionally regulating, and B, we cannot be weak, and I can't say this enough, in a toxic setting. Okay. Yes, if our loved one has behavior that's more black and white thinking and their fear has put them off the deep end, we'll need to get with a therapist and work what modified contact is. But if you are in relationships where somebody's trying to manipulate you, somebody is actually ridiculing you or putting you down, somebody's telling you how to dress or trying to control you, okay, somebody's not bearing witness to your pain, but instead basically giving you these positive sort of pull yourself in the bootstrap gifts, these toxic positive, you don't want to be there. There's no way to keep our cool when we have to fend off toxic people. Then we really do have to go through snake handling to be who we are. Snake handling never allows us to be cool. It allows us to be on guard. It's like walking on eggshells. So if we understand this, and I'm going to send you again to another cool place. It's called CPTSD Foundation, cptsfoundation.org. They've got some cool things in the holidays to help you stay cool. They do. They have meditations that they'll send out every day. That's really reflective of what I'm talking about philosophically. They really get it, and they're very good about it. There's also groups that you can use throughout the holiday season that the CPTSD Foundation has. Very nominal cost, very inexpensive. They really are excellent. And again, you can't isolate, because we all know isolation's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We much prefer you, even post-COVID or during COVID, to be connected to people at your autonomic system. But if you have to go online, this is the place to go online too, cptsdfoundation.org. They have so many tools there at such an accessible price. As charity, of course, it's a charitable foundation. So they'll help you. They help me, they help all my patients. Then I would love to you, as usual, I always tell you, go and talk to or get YouTubes from Dr. Brown, Dr. Brene Brown. She is fabulous. And she puts it into very understandable terms. But as a family caregiver, you want to stay cool, you make sure you have boundaries. Make sure boundaries are understood. They don't make you feel mean. They allow people to feel safe around you, okay? They allow people to really, that you love more than anything, to respect who you are. That's what boundaries do. As Dr. Brown says, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, including ourselves, we definitely feel used and mistreated. Boundaries are ways to keep ourselves safe. When we were a child, we never really had that. I didn't feel safe. That's again how the fight, flight, freeze response came from me. So look, as you all know, as we put together all these principles from this year, I want you to take it easy on yourself. Okay, you may be drinking from a fire hose right now, how to stay cool. Okay, if I don't do what I need to do tomorrow, I could go back to exactly the way I was 20 years ago. This is a very slow process. Lao Tzu really said it best. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Use Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, use the next few weeks as we go into the New Year's, okay? Use it just to get a feeling inside of you to begin with a single step, whether that's the CPTSD Foundation, whether it's going to WellMed Charitable Foundation and their teleconnections, or going there to the ESRT website, whatever it is, take baby steps, because it's important for us to move forward, not backwards. So again, when I say 3 forward, 2 backwards, that's forward movement. Today is strictly a way to take a single step. And the holidays are a fabulous way to start thinking about, how do I give myself a gift? And the reason is this. Here's the thing, family caregivers. We're not messing around. Stress creates real issues in the body, okay? It does. And let me explain to you a little bit before I go on, because I have to do this at WellMed often. Let me clear up terminology. Stress is your entry point. Burnout is your next step. Burnout is kind of detachment of self and soul. That's not a good thing. Burnout is when you actually go on vacation or have a respite, loved one gives you rest, and you come back and you're just as tired, just as overwhelmed. The third place on that continuum is compassion fatigue. Okay, it's called vicarious traumatization. That is you're really going down the depths of hell. That is when you trigger all those childhood traumas and they're just going off out of control. And so holidays are times, especially if we do too much and we have a lot of family members where that's happening. Stress keeps the score. It's your body. Your mind can do anything. As a psychologist, I have great respect for these defense mechanisms that we can jump into. We can project, we can deflect, we can deny. But your body, as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says, keeps the score. So to keep cool, we have to understand our stress response. Our stress is responsible for mood changes. Our stress, deals with medically with a diaphragm that it pushes upward when in very shallow breathing, when our breathing becomes labored. Stress will create muscle tension and tightens as soon as you can feel it in your body. It'll drive your heart rate up. It drives your blood pressure, right? And what it does inside your body, it creates cortisol, inflammation levels rise. There's nothing to mess around, but you can get in front of burnout, compassion fatigue, your digestion, irritable bowel syndrome, right? These are things that really kind of go kicking, ulcers. All of this is your stress response. And that's why I'm going to ask you deeply, deeply, if you can give yourself any gift, it's how to deal with your stress. Now, stress comes to us in a lot of different ways. For me, it came through, it still does, teeth grinding, TMJ, muscle tension, skin irritations, right? Trouble concentrating, headaches. These are all ways to understand our bodies. I want you to start thinking, not in your mind for holidays. I want you to start thinking in your body, okay? If you got these headaches and they're ongoing and you're feeling even apathetic, you don't even care about the world much, you got stomach problems, guess what? You no doubt have to get in front of the stress response. So your stress is affecting your bodies in so many ways. If we're here to do nothing else for the holidays, we're asking you to give yourself the gift of stress reduction, okay? Your thoughts, they continually go. Grab that book, The Four Agreements. And the first agreement, to be impeccable with your word, Dr. Miguel Ruiz is the author, will tell you that we talk to ourselves in very negative ways. And that's, how do we stop it? Well, we're going to do breath work, of course. Breath work was actually created, because many times our thoughts are happening at nighttime. They're preventing us from sleeping. There's ways to deal with it. Breath work is a way to calm your thoughts when they're actually going out of control. Okay, regular exercise, walking, these are ways your autonomic system resets. If you go to meditation, sure, yoga, biofeedback, but hang around healthy people, all of these are your stress reduction methods. All of these are retraining the brain. All of these literally are ways to stay cool and to begin staying cool, like you're your own personal coach. Okay, emotional intelligence, which I'm asking you to think about. If you need to understand it more, you can go grab Dr. Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. It's about effective stress regulation. That's how we gain self-esteem. Literally, if we take care of ourselves and stress, we actually build self-esteem. High emotional intelligence, it's no wonder it promotes an optimistic point of view. No wonder it allows us to become emotionally resilient. But when we don't have emotional intelligence, when we're not taking care of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, negative feelings will dominate. These words of self-talk, we'll carry a grudge, not against somebody else, but also ourselves. We don't know how to forgive ourselves. So the way to stay cool is the way to be in touch with your body. And then the way to be in touch with your body, the interventions for that are the ways to change our neural pathways. So anytime you have a dysregulating thought or emotional experience, you can create a new experience. You really can. In the holidays, as a caregiver, you can take a negative and turn it into a positive. Take the event, and all of a sudden, when your whole system starts feeling this, and I'm saying feeling this means detach from wherever you're at, go into your body and think about it. You can take a negative experience and turn it into a positive one. A lot of different ways to do it. Of course, I believe in breath work because, as I said, I work with policemen and firemen. I've never in my life seen anything like a cop or a fireman calming themselves before they walk into or run into a burning home or to a SWAT situation. They literally do this work. They take the 80 seconds of breath work that we're going to do at the end of this, and they use it before they run in. And you ask, wow, this is an emergency. What are they going to do? Well, when they run in sometimes not thinking, they'll get killed. They'll make the wrong decision. Why they do breath work is they can be much more proactive. They really can. So my work with them really said that regulating our bodies gives us a proactive way of regulating and co-regulating our lives. Over the holidays, it's like another burning home, guys. I know you may not be with family or you may invite family, but whatever it is, it could be dysregulated. A word to the wise, sit back, less is more during the holidays. But if you go inside your body and you're feeling depressed, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling despair, you can switch it. You can feel encouraged. And there's a lot of emotional regulating ways, okay? One is obviously the breath work, and others are something else. But breath work will help you, by the way, sleep better, deal with anxiety and stress. It does. It's a great emotional regulator. We're using it from department to department and clinic to clinic at WellMed. And we're just watching it because people literally can take, if they're unfortunately being challenged or dysregulated by a patient or by a colleague, they then take 80 seconds, that's what we're teaching, to go breathe. Because breath work creates self-awareness. And self-awareness really reduces our anxiety, stress, and anger. Think about these three words, okay? Think about these three words. I think this is very important. And maybe Glenda, you'd be so kind to put it in the chat. If you're feeling cut off on the road, or you feeling somebody's not happy with you, or somebody says something negative to you, whatever the reason is, remember these three words, okay? Just like me. Just like me. See, to know oneself is to know the world. So if we know we are flawed, quote unquote, imperfect, we can be fearful because we can, and we can give ourselves a break. Guess what? When somebody dysregulates us, let's say over Christmas or over the holidays or just in our lives, just say three words, just like me. It's a humble way of understanding that I don't have to get angry at the person in front of me because I am like the person in front of me. I'm just doing the best I can. I'm pedaling as fast as I can. So those three words, if you put them on sticky notes all around you, just like me, allows you not to judge, not to put people in file cabinets. At the end of the day, the best way to get out of this is the only way. The longest journey you ever make is from your head to your heart. So it's experiential. That's how you get out of this. That's how you develop and build yourself into a resilient family caregiver. That's how you actually are able to stay cooler during the holidays and next year, is not by reading books, not thinking that Dr. Jamie is your Buddha and I've got the silver bullet. No, it's you doing the experiential work, like breath work, like developing a journal, like doing gratitude work, all of these, like even meditation. So for us, there's a lot of places to go. I believe therapy is so important. I really do. But you can be your own best therapist. I also believe that Codependency Anonymous helped me, CODA, CODA.org. You may have meetings around you. It's a great way that if we feel our self-esteem is by people, places, and things, it puts us with a whole group of people who think like that. If this concept of CPTSD interests you, which it should, because I think it's the basis of our fight, flight, freeze response, our dysregulation, our inability to stay cool, I'd like you to get Pete Walker's book. Pete Walker really is one of the granddaddies of that work. And it's called How to Thrive, Not Just Survive with CPTSD. WellMed has great support groups. If you're anywhere near a WellMed Caregiver SOS, it's fabulous. If you have your own hospital area, that's great too. They've got groups. But breath work is a way to calm yourself. So as a family caregiver for holidays, understand that two roads diverged in a wood and that you took the road less traveled, and that makes all the difference. You learn experiential methods. We're going to take away, which we do all the time, so we can continue to keep it in our mind and our psyche, breath work. Breath work will ground you on 2 feet. Okay, it transforms your body chemistry and it returns control back to you. There is nothing else in life. Humans are the only ones that can do it. It's vagus nerve work. Again, I mentioned our nervous system is the largest system in our body, lungs, heart, goes through us, but it has the vagus nerve going down right through it. And if you want any sort of proof positive, look at the scans that Daniel Amen does. Unlock the power of the vagus nerve will allow you to stay cool during the holidays. And it'll allow you to love yourself enough to raise your self-esteem during the holidays. You can unlock the power a lot of different ways. Okay. I'll ask you to do breath work because I think it's really wonderful. Only humans can do it, and it's great rewards. But if you don't want to do it, do another grounding technique. You can pray. Praying is a grounding technique. You can go to a safe place you once were, touch it, feel it, and smell it. You can be silent. You can do so much with those 80 seconds of just chilling and being on 2 feet. But for those who like to gain a skill of calming themselves in the moment, or you can do this over and over again, of course, and you'll become much more proactive. Go to Dr. Weil on YouTube, put 478 after this talk, and keep it throughout the holidays to keep you cool. Andy is a gifted doctor, an integrative medicine doctor from University of Arizona. I had the pleasure to work with years ago. And he brought 478 to our country and saw the evidence-based research on it. You all have done it with me many times. Okay, when I ask you to close your eyes, I'm going to ask you to breathe in. You breathe in, if you will, through your nostrils for 4 seconds. It's cool, it's refreshing, it gives us the feel of life. You can swish it in your mind for up to 7 seconds. If you want to picture peace or serenity or unicorns or daffodils, feel free. If you just want to stay quiet, that's great too. But when you exhale, exhale loudly like this. Exhale so your dogs and your cats can hear it, because that's what triggers the vagus nerve response, is the exhalation. Okay, so you don't need a license or certification to do this work. This may be the greatest Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa gift you give yourself to stay cool over the holidays. Let's say, do we have 80 seconds to dedicate to our own self-care? Yeah, I think we do, right? I hate to say it, we said no. So let's all close our eyes. Let's put our feet on the ground. If you have shoes on, let's feel the floor through your shoes. And if you're barefooted, feel the floor through your feet. But with your back upright with respect, let's do 4, 7, 8, simply 4 times, okay? Breathe in now through your nostrils for 4 seconds. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7 seconds. Now, blow out with passion for 8. Breathe in the calmness for 4. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7. Wow, anxiety for 8. Breathe in the calmness again for 4 seconds. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7 seconds. Oh, wow, again, the anxiety for 8. Last time. Breathe in the calmness for 4. Keep it. Swish it for 7. Now, blow out all the anxiety you're feeling on Wednesday for 8. With your eyes still closed, feet on the ground. Go inside your body and scan it now. Just feel it, how it's shifted and changed. You've literally produced oxytocin, so hormone connects your neurotransmitters. It's called the happy hormone. You did all that in less than 80 seconds. And when you're ready, come back to our meeting here today and understand that what you have done is an act of self-compassion, that breath work, gratitude journal, praying, whatever you choose is an emotional regulator. And a moment of any emotional regulator can change your day. And a string of moments just like that can change the course of your life. So family caregivers, gosh, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. Be kind to yourselves. You are all powerhouses. We want you to take your oxygen first and be the change you want to see in all others. Know that better things are coming. They are. So keep calm, and just breathe. Thank you so much. It's all yours, Glenda.
Thank you, Dr. Jamie. Boy, that was helpful. I'm not a current caregiver, but it helps me anyway, so I appreciate that. Anybody have questions or comments? The chat box is open, or you can unmute your microphone, and Dr. Jamie would love to hear from you. If you have concerns about the holiday season that we are up against right now. Okay, while you're thinking about that, let me just tell you briefly about what's coming up on the Caregiver Teleconnection as we're ending the year here. Really hard for me to imagine. I'll be back with you tomorrow with another of our frequent presenters, Lucy Barluck, and she's going to be talking about Who Am I? And this is about caring for someone with dementia, and that caregivers sometimes lose their identity during that process. So she's going to talk to us about that. And then on Monday, on December the 12th at 12 noon, Xanda Hilger is going to be back with us, and you'll see there's a theme going here, and she's going to be talking about managing the holidays, an interactive discussion about how to cope. So, you know, she can probably build on what Jamie has told us here and others this month about coping with the holidays. We do have a couple of minutes if you would like to join in the conversation and talk about the holidays and what stresses may be out there for you, and what your plan is, or how you can use what Jamie talked to us about today.
So Glenda, I know before anybody talks, I'd love to call out something, because I had such incredible fond memories with Lisa Gibbons Foundation, working with WellMed at the Bob Ross Center. Huh? So who is on here from the Bob Ross Center? I would love for you to say hello and give a shout out, because in San Antonio, you guys have wonderful services as well.
I saw that myself, Jamie, and wondered who was there from the Bob Ross Center. There's somebody. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jamie and Glenda. This is Morgan Zachmeyer. I'm a new caregiver specialist with the Caregiver SOS program here in San Antonio. We have one participant watching also, and she, I know, really enjoyed your presentation. I could tell. Thank you all so much for what you do each month.
Thank you for what you all do too. We had started that Elise's place a long time ago. That's now, I guess, much more capably under Carol and your whole charitable foundation's watchful eye. And we're happy what you're doing, and just jazzed what the Bob Ross Center has done for many, many years.
And Morgan,
yes, thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. It's a great one.
We're glad you're with us. We can use all the help that we can get, and I'm speaking for caregivers as well.
Yes.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? And Jamie, thanks for calling them out, because I had noticed that same thing myself.
Yes. I don't think we ever give you enough, Glenda. Also, kudos. You know, Glenda is a rock star. She's from the dojo of the AAAs. She is a former, how many AAAs have you run, Glenda?
Just one, but I did it for 17 years. So,
oh my gosh. So anybody's not familiar with the Area Agency on Aging, and many of you should be. I'll let her actually tell you about it. But I've worked with them in Florida and Texas, and they are just powerful. During the holidays, I don't want you to think that they're not there as a resource. But why don't you say a little bit more about them, Glenda, since you're such a pro?
Sure. Those of us that have been in the network always call them the AAAs, and I always have said, and that's not the American Automobile Association. You will not find them on the side of the road to help you with your car problems, but it is the Area Agency on Aging, and they are located in every state in the country. And they have a mandate from the federal government, and also funding that goes along with that mandate, to serve caregivers. And so that is why they are such a wonderful resource for caregivers today. They usually have caregiver specialists. I will say that each Area Agency on Aging, because of the amount of funding they receive, can offer a variety of services for caregivers. Some provide respite care. All of them provide educational services and information referral services. So if you have not contacted the Area Agency in your area, I certainly encourage you to do that. And you can reach them by dialing 211 on your phone and ask for the local Area Agency on Aging, and they'll be able to connect them to you and you to them. So Jamie, thanks for bringing that up. I cherished my work all those years with the Area Agency on Aging in Austin, Texas. And ever since I left there, I've been here on the teleconnection. So I keep my hand in the pot, as they say, and I love it. And I learn something every time I'm on a session. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenda, for doing this work.
No, thank you, Jamie. Well, if you've been on with me before, I don't keep people on a session just because we aren't at the magic number, whatever that might be. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank Dr. Jamie for joining us today. And I wish you the very happiest and best of holidays. Do the work. It works, right, Jamie?
It does for sure. And I want to thank everybody for sending things along here. Sandy, Ruth, all of you. It does work if you work it, but know that you're worth it to work it. And we hope it helps the people around us. But at the end of the day, it'll definitely help you keep your cool in life. And in 2023, you really, really deserve to be the caregiver to yourself first before anybody else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And please join us again for other sessions and watch for that follow-up email that will be coming to you if you register for the call today. Thank you again. Bye-bye.